Alright, I got the light shining in there. I'd be lying if I said I wasn't kind of upset about that. Alright, taking a break from the Datsun, and we're back where all this started on the GMC. It hasn't needed much of anything other than just some small knick-knack stuff. Did I just see antifreeze drip from that? Awesome. Okay, so scratch that. It still needs some small little things. The thing I'm trying to fix right now is the air filter, because I had name. It was just one of those cheap eBay kits, you know, cold air intake for a 99 Tahoe, what this motor came out of. And by cold air intake, they just mean it sits the air filter on the fender well in direct, you know, relationship with the hot radiator. But it was the easiest way to put an air filter on this thing, so that's what I did. And then that fits into the beloved coffee can cold air housing. So it fits in there. It's got this clamp on the top of it that comes around and grabs that, and this pulls air from behind the headlights down in there. And actually, when you're moving, it does drop the air temp down, you know, as air's coming through the grill and around the headlights. The reason we're doing something with this today is clearly I have a lot of faith in the construction of this air filter. And I was looking at it today, and I'm not impressed with that, you know. I mean, the air filter's coming apart. Hopefully, oh my gosh, I'm hoping that it was actually still filtering. But regardless, that piece of junk is going away. Even if I have to buy another one like this, you know, just a different brand, just to temporarily get by, I'll do that. But some way, somehow, I'm figuring out how to put a regular air filter on this thing, because nobody makes, like Wix or Purelate or AC Delco, none of them make, at least that I could find, and just a generic air filter like this one that you can just hose clamp onto a pipe. All right, it's a little bit later, but I came up with a solution. So, I'm back to all of the original equipment. I had put the original boot back on here a while back with the old air filter, and it worked out better, and now I've come full circle and thankfully did not throw this away, and I still had it. So to make an air filter housing for this, two of these was the critical component, and I think this is a 7-inch, maybe, I don't know, I'll correct myself if not, a 7-inch duct end piece. I don't know what the technical name of it is. And I use this because it's circular, it's metal, it's seemingly galvanized so it won't rust, and I liked that it was shiny. Simple things in life, right? So as far as mounting it, it has 2 rivets holding it down. Really, I wish I'd gone with a little bit of a wider bracket, but this was just the one that I had on hand, and I was really just trying to get this back together. And it bolts down to a existing hole that I already had in the wheel well. So at least there's that. And so as far as these 2 pieces connecting, because I don't want this to be able to fall out and pull itself out of the air filter, you can see it has, I don't want to take this apart right now just because it's kind of a pain to get back together. Whatever, I guess I can. All right, so here you can see the shape of it better. And so like this part here is bent out, this part here's bent out, this part here's bent out, this part here's bent out. And the idea is that this thing will slot over this if I line it up right. Like so. And then as I slide it around, it'll lock in and grab on, it'll stop at those raised sections and won't let it go any further. And these teeth are behind the metal so that this thing can't come apart. And so to make this piece, I drilled 2 holes in it, and I screwed it down to a piece of wood that I could stand on, and I used a hole saw and cut it out. And be extremely careful if you're using a hole saw, just because when those things grab, I mean, it's rather violent if they do. So just go, you know, with that, I just went extremely slow. And sure enough, whenever it started to go through it, you know, it grabbed and locked down, and I had to just sit there and kind of baby it on through. But if you really hammer down on it, I mean, it's gonna rip the drill out of your hand. Best case scenario. Worst case scenario, you hurt yourself. So that's how I cut that out, and then the grinder was small enough to get in here and kind of do the rough cutout of all these notches. And then I think I got in here with a file and the Dremel a little bit just to make that work. But so that's how I put that portion of it together. All right, I remeasured it. It was actually 8 inches. So 8 inches gives that much clearance all the way around the filter. And then of course I've got this little doodad back in there and all that stuff. So filter pushes on there, slides on just like it would ordinarily. I even went and painted that while I had it off. So that's how the filter goes on there, and that's how the filter looks. And this is the correct filter that this motor is supposed to have for the vehicle it came out of. And this is the housing for the air filter. And all this is a piece of sheet metal. So you can see on the end, I have another one of these, whatever, chimney pieces, whatever that's called. And I made the whole thing here out of, the whole outside is one piece of sheet metal, and I didn't get the measurement quite right. You know, I tried doing the pi times the diameter of this piece to get the circumference, and then I added a little bit for overlap. Well, I didn't add enough. I mean, it just barely overlapped at all, so I had to put this piece here on the inside and then 2 rivets, you know, to tie everything together. So it's the first time I've ever used rivets, and I'm really a fan of them. I mean, they're really cool, honestly, and super great for stuff like this as far as I can tell, because I didn't want a bunch of bolts in here because they just vibrate loose, and I'm not welding this. So, and then there is the original drain pipe, or the drain pipe from the original setup. So a little bit of nostalgia there. Have a metal clip riveted up there just to help that stay where it's supposed to, and then I just doubled up some pieces and bent them up here, some screws holding it to the PVC, riveted on the other end. So there's those. It's obviously not making a real great seal, but that piece of rubber is there. It's just a piece of hose that I slid all the way down one side. That's there just to help it seal up. This part doesn't really matter so much. It's just, this is just to help it get only cooler air and not air from the radiator. Just a little piece of inner tube here that's kind of spliced in there to cover up that big gap, because this piece here was a super big pain to try and get fitted right. Oh, and last thing I forgot to mention, I stuck a piece of styrofoam on the inside there, because that pretty much butts up against the filter here. So that way there's just no chance of the filter coming off inside the housing, because that would really suck. Okay, so that's it installed. It just slips over this piece here. Kind of have to, it's a little bit tricky to get past the battery. And even though I have a decal here on the front, I don't think it would arc on the battery, but I went ahead and put a piece of tape and zip tied a rubber hose over it. Just in case this somehow came loose. I would not want it to just sit there and arc against the battery. That'd be a bad day. And if there's ever an emergency, I mean, I can still get to the negative just fine. And so this end is held on with a little bracket, just a little coarse thread screw holding it to the inner fender. You can see it's all open down here, so theory is just like the last one. Fresh air comes screaming through the headlight, around the grill, all through here, comes through these holes behind the battery and up into this area. And then this was the decal I had made for this thing. It's a little glossier than I would have liked, given that I painted the rest of it a flat black. But I think it turned out pretty cool. So it's GMC division. So this is obviously not a housing that would have came with this truck. You know, clearly I made it. But I wanted to put a decal on the front of it because there's a whole lot of surface area here that I felt something needed to be done with. And so I found a similar font and color scheme on a air filter decal that would have been on the original motor in this, that would have came in this truck. And I kind of mimicked that. And so, you know, so GMC division, just because I saw a transmission pan out of a GMC one time that said GMC division or division of GMC or something like that. So I threw that on there because I thought that was cool. And I didn't think they would call it a cold air intake or cold air whatever. I tried to come up with something kind of a more weird name that I figured they would have called it back then, and I came up with fresh air induction, especially given that the old system with that other stupid air filter really wasn't providing this a whole lot of fresh air. I figured this one is definitely the fresh air induction. And so as far as this is actually the number for this filter, so I thought that was pretty cool. Went ahead, and so that's the part number for the filter I used. And then, you know, I put instructions on here, you know, inspect the air filter. And so actually, I used some of the original instructions from the original style decal, and then I added some of my own here. So inspect air filter indicator every oil change. That's that little guy. More often under severe dust conditions. Do not wash, tap, or blow with air. Replace when indicator shows change filter or visibly worn. So again, I threw in my own terminology, kind of kept the same verbiage of the old one. And this was actually pretty much, I pulled this exactly from one of the decals. You know, notice this engine is equipped with positive crankcase ventilation check system at every oil change. This does have, you know, obviously factory positive crankcase ventilation. So thought that was kind of cool. Went ahead and threw that on there just to fill up that space. So, you know, you open the hood. It's not super eye-catching, but it fills that space with something, which I felt it really needed. So, real pleased with that. I like it. The motor's actually getting filtered air now. I can pick up one of these air filters anywhere. The decal is super cool. I just had this made by a local place who they just do car decals like they do car wraps and stuff like that. And I just sent them an email and was like, hey, I think I sent it as a PDF, kind of my image here, and said, hey, you know, this is what I want it to be a circle and all that, and $15 they sold me this one and 2 extras. So thought that was pretty snazzy of them. But anyways, so there is that. You know, constant improvement. Came up with a much better solution than what I originally had. And to stick this decal on, I just cleaned this with alcohol really good, let it dry, and put it on there. And so far, it's stuck on there, and I've driven the truck around. It hasn't been super hot outside, but so far the decal seems to be holding up. But anyways, there's that. Thought it was pretty cool.